Folks, we never thought we'd say this, but House of the Dragon is the best thing on TV right now, and we just can't get enough of it. It's got everything you need from a good show: drama, suspense, romance, and much more. And in the latest episode, even and laughs returned to Westeros. Here's a recap for episode 4 of the new show. First up, returns to Westeros. House of the Dragon is surprising and almost miraculous. There's no reason it should be this good, but there's also no way it could have not been this good. Now, we all love the parent show, but we can't pretend any longer that it didn't have some major problems, especially when it came to the explicit scenes. Did you know that all the brutal assault scenes on the show were directed by men? That's super insensitive and unfair to the characters and to the actors portraying them. First, we simply don't need to see so much violence against women on camera. What purpose do such scenes serve? Like, really? And if it's absolutely necessary to the plot, at least do it with care and be mindful of it. Sadly, Game of Thrones lacked this at every point. After the #MeToo movement, the show was even criticized for its abusive nature of scenes. So when the prequel was announced, many fans expected it to not have any explicit scenes, but the producers kept thinking about ways to make the viewers comfortable with the idea of seeing sustained nudity back in this world. And turns out the answer was pretty simple: let women do it. Claire Kilner is only the second female director on both shows, and in her first episode, she managed to depict activity in a more nuanced way than any of her predecessors. It was transactional, dutiful, uninhibited, incestuous, disturbing, but also sweet. It didn't come across as crass or discomforting. You didn't want to look away while you were watching. Given everything we'd seen in this world before, it was a welcome surprise. Next, what's a Game of Thrones show without some incest? Now, not everybody feels so good about this. We see all manners of sexual activity in this latest episode when Daemon takes Rhaenyra for a night out in King's Landing. He gives her a drink, the two watch a play about themselves, and the princess even steals some food from a man on the street, and their adventures end with a trip to a brothel, where one thing leads to another. In a very shocking or not so shocking moment when you remember what you're watching, Daemon starts to kiss his niece very passionately. She starts to kiss him back, and he begins to undress her, but then the prince runs away. As expected, this scene left viewers conflicted. On one hand, these are the two very best characters on the show, but also, he's literally her uncle. How can we make peace with that? Many viewers were quick to express that they felt sick watching the two together. One person tweeted that they knew this was the World of Thrones, but they couldn't bring themselves to watch that scene. But surprisingly, some fans didn't mind it all that much. One fan posted that you couldn't apply the rules of the normal world to this entirely fictional world, and people should stop overreacting because this was always going to happen. It's literally a show about the Targaryens. You know what? We kind of agree. And Alicent put it best: you Targaryens do have queer customs. Moving on, the brothers are back together, but not for long. Now, this episode didn't start with the usual mystery of this world, but in fact, it opened with one of the funniest scenes of the show so far. We see Rhaenyra sit through proposals from elderly men and young boys, and it was only funny because she was laughing, but she cuts her trip short to return home. On her way back to King's Landing, there's a sight of a dragon swooping over the Red Keep, and it signals the return of its problematic rider, Daemon Targaryen. Then we get the long-delayed meeting between the prince and King Viserys, and it went smoother than expected. Many expected the ruler of the Seven Kingdoms to be angrier at his brother, but as soon as Daemon put down the crown and pledged allegiance to the king, Viserys softened up. They soon hugged, and for a little, it seemed like all was going to be okay between the two. The booze-filled garden party that followed was also kind of refreshing, where the two Targaryen brothers bonded over their shared dislike of tapestries. But unsurprisingly, it was all a ruse. Daemon wasn't there to make peace. He was after his niece Rhaenyra and the Iron Throne that she is set to inherit. Coming up, the Rhaenyra scene was an amazing throwback. At least so far, House of the Dragon has been very good at giving us just the right amount of callbacks. They have always felt very natural, and it really seems like the writers want to tell a good story. They're not relying on faux nostalgia, and we have to say, we really admire that. Now, as Rhaenyra escaped through the catacombs of the Red Keep, we couldn't help but be reminded of the first season of Game of Thrones. She slipped through the same gallery of epic dragon skulls where Arya Stark would hear Lord Varys conspiring to put Daenerys Targaryen on the throne. Okay, so full credit to Millie Alcock here. When the princess was out among the fleshpots and fire breathers of King's Landing, her joy was infectious. She was excited to finally act her age and was in awe of the dirty, entertaining, and kind of disturbing and scary city. It was also very clear that her uncle was up to something. He made her watch one of those weird, satirical mummers plays that understandably ticked her off the wrong way because they were making fun of her for being a female successor. Not to forget the incestuous scene. Then came the incestuous scene that we previously talked about. Now, if you ask us, Daemon's seduction of his niece wasn't really surprising. What was shocking was how enthusiastic Rhaenyra seemed to be, and Daemon stopped and ran away. But when you think about it, you'll realize that it all was actually very in character. The princess loves rebelling against her father, and there was no better choice for this than his rowdy brother. Now, as she's already turned on, she starts lavishing all her horniness on the first available male, who of course happened to be Ser Cristen. The knight was kind of startled at first, but it was obvious that he had been thinking about this for quite some time, and for the first time in the show so far, we see two people having a genuinely good time. What's more, it didn't last. But let's be honest, none of us expected it to, did we? Like Varys had his little birds in thrones, Otto Hightower's got something similar too. With the first sights of the morning, whispers had reached him of Daemon and Rhaenyra's actions in the cellar, and he made the biggest mistake of his life. He shared the whispers with the king, although it was expected, and so was Viserys' reaction. He was understandably furious and re-exiled his brother, who he was happy to see only a few hours ago. Now, what we didn't see coming is Daemon offering to marry his niece, but the king was quick to shut that down and shunned his brother back to Dragonstone. We don't know about you guys, but our favorite scenes in the show are the ones with Viserys and Rhaenyra. They've got undeniable chemistry that you'd expect a father and daughter to have, and you can't help but just watch in awe. And by the old gods and the new, this episode had lots of them. He's livid with his daughter, who's also not ashamed to throw it back at him. She refuses to accept it, but she also points out that she wouldn't be in trouble if she was just born a male. But then the two reach a truce. The princess agrees to marry Laenor Velaryon, but only once the king sacks Ser Otto as his hand, a move we can be sure will have bloody consequences, and we're just super excited about the ride. Finally, how did everybody react to this episode? Folks, people are loving the show, and to be fair, there's a lot to love about it. It's more nuanced than Game of Thrones ever was, it's more focused, the characters are multi-dimensional, and in just 4 episodes, everybody's fully invested in the show. It's also getting fantastic reviews from critics. One fan tweeted that this was the best show that they had watched in years. Another said that it was well worth the wait, and already better than Game of Thrones ever was. Now, we're not sure about that. It's been 4 weeks, but if the show keeps progressing the way it is, we have no doubt it will surpass the parent show. In fact, we've already seen Dragon avoid some common mistakes in Thrones, and it seems like they've learned from their mistakes. We're all beyond excited to see where this story goes. Apart from that, fans are devastated that the next episode will be Millie Alcock's last on the show. We've all formed an emotional attachment with her in just a few episodes, and we're super sad to see her leave. Although, we have no doubt that Emma Darcy will do a great job. That's a wrap for this video. What did you think about the latest episode? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. See you in the next one.